Welcome to Book World with Karen Reborn. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Hello everyone. Look at your life. Look at your choices. Choosing to watch this video is the best choice that you've ever made. In case you're new here, kindly consider subscribing to this channel. And for the returning subscribers, thank you so much for always coming back and appreciating my content. So today we are continuing with the analysis of A Silent Song and Other Stories. Reading it, I've analyzed several stories down below. Kindly consider watching them. So today we're moving on to the 12th episode, that is December, by Filemon Liyambo from Namibia. This is an interesting one, so ensure that you sit back, relax and enjoy the analysis. First of all, we're going to talk about the characters in the book as usual. The first character that we have in the book is December. December is the sister to September. Then we have Ezekiel Shikongo, who is the grandfather, and we have Silas Shikongo, who is the father. Moving on to the synopsis of the book, we have the grandfather, who is Ezekiel Shikongo. Ezekiel Shikongo considers September, who is the brother, as someone who has a lot of idiotism in him, and he talks about it here. And then there's a period that mishaps happen, and December, who is the lady, injures the brother September. And having injured the brother September, the grandfather forbade her from eating chicken. So there is a secret that we're going to follow in the story as we continue. These people are considered as academic geniuses. Being considered as academic geniuses, this December, who is the sister to September, develops a psychiatric condition when he was supposed to be joining teachers training college, and that doesn't happen at the end because the grandfather says that she has been bewitched. She's taken to the hospital and abandoned there. So there's child neglect and abandonment. There's also that. Then again, September coming back to reunite with the family. The first thing that September does, September goes to KFC to buy some chips. September ordered chips. She sneered at him. It reminded him of the way his grandfather Ezekiel looked at him over his glasses. The old man did it whenever he sensed what he called traces of idiotism in his grandson. September was absent-minded at times. He took after his grandfather's youngest brother Joseph. Only chips. The words were foreign to her. Like in most of Namibian town where everyone knew each other, there was an indifference towards those who just did not reside there. Sticking out was a serious crime. Anyone who did not belong had to wait until Jesus' return for decent customer service. Your chips. She handed him his change and scoffed at the absurdity of it all. Who came to KFC to order chips? So there's also this thing that rises here. The grandfather forbade December from taking chips. September is reuniting back with the sister, coming back to the nation or the country, and now he wants to go and see the sister in the hospital. He remembers that I cannot go empty-handed, I have to carry something. Goes to KFC and takes just chips. And taking just chips, it raises eyebrows, and this woman talks about it and says that it's absurd. So let's see what happens. On September arriving to the hospital, September is held back by the nurse, claiming that September cannot get in just because his name was not written anywhere in the file that he was related to the sister or December. And because of this, September has to really talk about life, talk about being the brother who's been living abroad. And because of that, the nurse becomes so light on him and allows him into the hospital to see the sister. And getting there, they meet the Shuveni, a supervisor and a familiar face who appears here. They begin to talk about their past, what they used to live like, how they used to live like, and whatever happens during that time. And an interesting story is given in this book where they talk about the sister having to bring Kali, a dog, in order to make the man run away, or rather to make the man not to come close to their homestead, just because she was young and did not want to get into any affair with this man. So they talk about that in this book. And then again, whatever we see, there's now the reunion that happens between the siblings. These siblings reunite, taking chips from KFC. They talk about their lives. Mishap that happened when they were in the garden and made the brother to bleed. There's a t-shirt that this sister was wearing. She had to take it off and bind the bleeding or cover the bleeding part. So that is the same t-shirt that this man bought, the exact one, and bought to the sister. His sister, December, was the last born until he came along. Older by 2 years, December tended to her mother's vegetable garden and her brother when they were still too small to join their sibling working in the Mahangu palm millet field. There was a mishap. The incidents were minor, but stories sound better when exaggerated. The accepted version of this 4-year-old September liked hiding. He hid between tomato plants while his sister was weeding with a hoe. He sprang up while she was in mid-swim. The impact opened a small but deep gash on the inside of his head. She ripped up half her t-shirt to stem the bleeding. It had been a gift from their British volunteer kindergarten teacher. So the same t-shirt that she ripped off to clear the bleeding from the brother, that is the same t-shirt that brother gifts her when she was coming back to the nation. Another thing that we get to see in this book is now the aspect of these people having to reunite and reuniting. They talk about the old time, and then the brother has to leave to go back home. Going back home, there's also now another thing that unfolds here. Ezekiel had dreamt about Joseph and said that, Ezekiel, that is the grandfather, had dreamt about Joseph and said that Joseph was somewhere eating something, and they went there, they found him from what was on the dream. This is a man that believed on witchcraft and evil eye and spirits. Ezekiel dreams of Joseph the brother sitting somewhere eating something, and when they go there the next day, they find this man. So there's also that he could dream, and a lot of things could happen in the life of this man, because he was not an ordinary man, like I could say, but believed in a lot of witchcraft and people doing bad things, evil eye, dark forces, and all that. So that happened. Then the next day of September reaching home, the next day, September buries the grandfather, burying the grandfather with his secret. The grandfather didn't open up and tell September that your sister did not eat chicken for this period because of this and this and this. I forbade her from eating chicken because of this. There was no explanation about that. That is the secret that the grandfather now dies with. That takes us directly to the thematic concerns in this book. Number one thing, there's also superstition on mental illness. December is the title of this book. The main character of this book is December. The main character of this book, December, now suffers some mental problem and is living in the hospital. The connection that Filemon was trying to bring around to indicate, or rather to bring out a clear point over the mental illness in this book. Another thing, there is also unclear storyline. I'm sure that as you're listening to this book, there were a lot happening. This one doing this, then we jump to the next thing, we jump to the other, we jump to the grandfather being believing on witchcraft, the sister being in the brother being abroad, coming back, burying dreams. There are a lot of and there's unclear storyline that can be identified in this book. Even the plot, it's not flowing. It's jumbled up. Yeah. Another thing, there's also December and Joseph suffer mental illness. December and Joseph. Joseph was the younger brother to suffered illness, mental illness. and went missing. But what happens here now? December finds him. There's that mental illness. Then they all believed or blamed all this mental illness on the or evil eye and dark forces. The grandfather believed that there's an evil eye, someone doing this, and at some point we are told that he took December to a certain place to be prayed for. Then there's also Silas, who diverts from his father's taboo by naming the children conventionally. The children are named after the months of the year: December, September. This was against the father's will, and the father, that is Ezekiel, with their grandfather, could say that this was not okay. Silas Shikongo, bless his soul, had a taste for the unconventional. He named his last 4 children after the month in which they were conceived. It was rebellious. If you asked his friends in public, it was utterly stupid. If you asked them in his absence, they thought him a fool. Maybe he was. His own father had been against it, afraid his son's idiotism would rub off on his grandchildren. There was only one problem with Silas' naming convention. December was born in September. September was born in July. Silas and the concept of time were on divergent paths. So that is what they talk about, the naming. Then there's also Ezekiel's death shows the end of old traditions and the beginning of civilization. Remember, September is coming from abroad, coming back to the country, burying the grandfather. The aspect of burying the grandfather could really show that this man and traditions were now no more. They're now going to live a different life. Bye-bye to traditions, bye-bye to all that, and beginning of civilization. Then also, we can also see that Ezekiel's belief in this book about traditions, his traditions and beliefs about witchcrafts, bad eyes, dark forces, it affected the family. We can mention that Joseph ran mad. December had the problem. September, even though he's now the savior here and the redeemer of people in this story, September is also considered as someone who has some idiotism in him. So there's this affecting them all together in the book. Yeah. Then another theme that we get to talk about is hope. September arrival home brings back hope. He buries the grandfather, probably for the start of a new life. Immediately after the burial, something strange happens. It rains. Immediately rains so much, and they believe that because it rained, the traditions and all the evil spirits and all the dark forces were wiped away with the grandfather. Then Joseph is also found immediately after the father has been buried. And then I can say that it's a nice read from Filemon, Liyambo, Namibia. It's a nice read. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. Thank you so much for liking my video and commenting. Kindly consider subscribing to this channel, and let's meet in the next video.